Hi there, and a very warm welcome to our new series, How to Run a Board Meeting. I'm Sean McDonald from BoardPro, and it's great to have you with us. In this episode, we're turning our focus to a crucial part of every board meeting, the board pack. We're delighted to welcome Dauniika Maclean, Managing Director of Board Administration Services, who will guide us through how to build, organise and deliver a board pack with clarity and confidence. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by last-minute updates, scattered documents or version control nightmares, you're not alone. Dauniika is here to show you a smarter, simpler way to manage the process so your board has exactly what they need when they need it. From structure to delivery, this session will give you practical tools to streamline your board pack workflow and help your board meetings run more smoothly than ever. Now, I know many of you joining are CEOs, busy people with full calendars and plenty of boardroom experience under your belts. So first things first, thank you so much for carving out your time to be here today. We've designed these episodes to be fast-paced, practical, and filled with real-world insights you can take back to your organisation. I'm pleased to introduce today's presenter, Dauniika Maclean, an accomplished board secretary and administrator with deep experience across the legal, health, and financial services sector. Dauniika is a chartered member of the Institute of Directors and currently serves on the board of Takapuna School in Auckland, New Zealand, bringing both governance and operational insight to the table. Dauniika is also a founder and director of Board Administration Services, where she helps boards and executives lift their governance performance through smarter processes and strategic support. With her breadth of experience and practical approach, Dauniika is perfectly placed to guide us through today's topic on building, organising and delivering board packs with confidence. So welcome to the stage, Dauniika.
Thanks, Sean, and kia ora, and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me. Today we are diving into a topic that, while sometimes overlooked, is absolutely fundamental to governance success: the humble board pack. When done well, board packs empower directors to make informed, timely decisions. When done poorly, they can derail meetings, frustrating chairs, and putting organisational performance at risk. Over the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to take you through a practical, step-by-step guide to building, organising, and delivering board packs with clarity, confidence, and a lot less stress. You'll leave today with tangible tools that you can apply immediately, whether you're supporting your first board meeting or looking to sharpen a seasoned process. So let's start by looking at the big picture, the timeline. Preparing a great board pack is a staged process, not a last-minute scramble. You should begin your process about 3 weeks out before the actual meeting date, working with the chair to create an agenda and setting expectations for paper writing. Then, 2 weeks out, you want to be collecting those papers from the paper writers, reviewing and formatting those papers, and also taking the time here to update the action tracker with any updates. 1 week before the meeting, you want to look to distribute the board pack, ideally with no surprises in the form of late papers. Good board packs don't just happen. They're built through discipline and forward planning. Have you ever noticed how much smoother a board meeting runs when the pack is prepared well in advance rather than rushed at the last minute? Now that we've seen the big picture timeline, we'll zoom in on the first step, creating a strong and strategic agenda. Creating the agenda. So the agenda is the spine of your board pack. Legally, it must include some basic details: the date of the meeting, the time the meeting is going to be held, the location of the meeting, and it's good here to actually specify if it's in an office and what the name of the boardroom is if there are different meeting rooms, who's going to be attending the meeting, both directors and attendees in the terms of executives, and any guests that might be joining. And you should also note any apologies, people who are expected to be at the meeting that have advised that they can't attend. Now, an agenda should generally reference the board work plan if you have one. The board knows in advance what's coming up in any certain month, and what's due in that month should be on the agenda for that month. It should always include any matters arising that might have come up from previous meetings, any actions that are due that have any kind of material result that needs to be presented to the board. That should also go on the agenda. And you should always include the standard governance items, minutes of the previous meetings for approval, the action tracker with the updates, and your interests register. Now, and importantly, you want to allocate speaking time to each agenda item and note who the key presenter is going to be. This helps to manage the meeting's flow, and it gives the chair an insight into how much time should be spent on each meeting item, and it also provides directors with an insight into how much substance each agenda item is going to be given, so that they can give more consideration to whether something is simply for noting or whether they want to be considering the topic and thinking about questions or what they might want to ask during the meeting time. Now, agendas aren't just lists. They are strategic documents in their own right. They dictate the flow of the meeting. You should have attended Stephen Bowman's Writing a Good Strategic Agenda webinar, where he goes into the flow of a good agenda and what items should be discussed and when. If you think about your own board agendas, are they really driving strategic focus? Or are they just walking the board through operational updates? They do play a part in how these meetings flow. So once the agenda is set, the next critical step is setting clear expectations for board papers. Because without clarity at this stage, everything downstream gets harder. So when we're setting our paper expectations, clarity is kindness. You want to communicate early to the paper writers what is expected of them. You need to know who's writing each paper. And if you're unsure, you should clarify. Talk to your chair, or if you're the CEO, you should know yourself who in your team is expected to be writing these papers and provide them with clear guidance on what's expected. You want to set a clear deadline in terms of when that paper is to come to the board administrator or to yourself. And it's good to send reminders out before that deadline so that they've got no excuses because you've actually reminded them that that's due. So it's good to send those reminders out kind of a good 2 to 3 days before the papers are due. I like to set calendar reminders for myself to remind those people that those papers are due. It also provides them an opportunity to advise you if they're not going to have these done on time so that you can manage your own expectations and you know when to expect those and if you need to advise the board that there's going to be a late board pack. Now, you should also, in these papers, be specifying the purpose of the paper. Why is it coming to the board? Is it for noting? Is it for a decision? Or is it purely for information? When you set expectations early, you set your board up for success. Good board packs reflect good internal discipline. When you process your incoming papers, this is about 2 weeks out from the meeting, your expectations are clear and people are sending in their papers by the deadline as was communicated. You want to collect all of those documents promptly, and if they're not there at the deadline, start actively chasing. Reach out to those people that are due to write those papers and ask them why the paper's not there or when you can expect it. And you do need to be quite disciplined with this and chase them quite hard because some people can become quite lackadaisical about writing these papers. And it is up to the administrator or whoever's running the board meeting process to really drive this process and chase any papers that aren't there on a due time. And there should be no verbal updates for instead of papers without prior agreement with the chair. Once you receive these papers, you want to rename the files so that they're consistent with the agenda name and item number. Now, this is because it helps to keep things clear for you when you're creating the board pack. You know exactly what needs to go against which agenda item. But also from a director perspective, when they're reading the pack, they'll often see the title of the documents, and if they make sense according to the agenda, then it's easier for them to navigate as well. Now, you want to also review the papers at this stage, make sure that there's accurate spelling and grammar, and that they read clearly. I'll talk to that more on the next slide. But a little extra for experts, if you're really good at training your executives to name their files properly, it makes things a lot easier for you. I mean, how much easier would it be to compile a board pack if every submission arrived formatted and labelled properly the first time, instead of coming through to you something like board paper .draft.final draft, which is something that I've actually seen. So what do you want to be looking for when you're doing your quality assurance of these board papers? Collecting papers is just the start. You really do need to run a thorough quality check. There are 3 areas to review. The content. Are the recommendations and decisions clear and actionable? Does the board know what is expected of them? The formatting. Is the branding consistent? Is the layout consistent? Is it clean? Are there adequate gaps? Is it easily readable? And then technical details. If there are hyperlinks within the document, are those hyperlinks working and taking you to the correct place? Are the page numbers sequential? And are the agenda references accurate? At this point, the goal is a board pack that directors can trust. Clear, consistent, and complete. If you need more help in how to write a good board paper, I highly recommend Dauniika Maclean's Writing Good Board Papers webinar, because she really delves into the structure of what makes a good paper. So after quality assurance, it's time to compile the board pack. You want to order the papers exactly in the order they appear on the agenda. If you're not using board software, it's a good idea to put in hyperlinks to those different papers within the agenda itself so that directors can easily navigate through the papers. Again, if you're not using board software, I recommend merging all of the papers into a single PDF file, and consider having large appendices separate to the board pack. You can either have these at the end of the pack so that people don't get mixed up as they're navigating through a PDF, or if you're using board software, you can actually put them within the governance documents files and create links that people can click through to those appendices, but they're not clogging up the board pack with lengthy pages. For example, if you have any kind of reference article that you're referencing within the document or the board paper, if you just have a link to that, they can go and read that, but it's not actually part of the paper. Because you need to remember that directors are obliged to have read everything that's in a board pack to have expelled their fiduciary duties. So having a 300-page board pack makes this very difficult for them to do. If a lot of those pages are made up with that reference material and appendices, you can create a much shorter board pack by having those filed nicely to the side. You want to do a final check, walking through the papers from a director's perspective, because ultimately a messy pack leads to a messy meeting, and messy meetings cost time, focus, and engagement. Once you have your final draft of the papers and they're all compiled correctly, it's a good idea to let the chair do a page turn of the pack. So you want to send them the complete draft pack for review. Encourage the chair to thoroughly review that and provide meaningful feedback. Any feedback that they have, incorporate those changes promptly and professionally. Chair involvement isn't just a courtesy. It provides them the opportunity to thoroughly review the board pack before it goes out, ensuring there are no surprises. They're the ones leading the meeting, so they need to hold the key to the meeting, which is the board pack itself. It's critical for a strong and well-led meeting. And then it comes time to distributing the board pack. So once you have the chair's review and any inputs included, it's time to send this out to the full board. If you are not using board software, which I highly recommend you do because it makes this whole process a lot easier, use an electronic delivery method. So that PDF pack, send it out via email, but ultimately it should be password protected to ensure that it's secure in case that email gets discovered. You'll then need to communicate the password for those documents to your board in a separate email, because if it's in the same email, obviously that's also discoverable. You want to send the pack out 1 week before the meeting. This gives directors the space to read and prepare properly and adequately. Any later, and it becomes harder for them to read the entire pack, and not just read it, but give it due consideration and thought and reflection. Any sooner, and the information in the papers might not be up to date, especially when you're looking at kind of financials or key operational details. Those things can change very quickly, and if you're putting in you're sending papers out 2-3 weeks in advance, it's not going to be up to date. So the ideal time is 1 week. You have to consider that directors are very busy people. They might be travelling. They need time to be able to allocate to actually reading these packs. This might not be the only board meeting that they have in the upcoming week, and it's not fair to send it out on a Friday and expect them to read it over the weekend when the meeting's on a Monday. If you're sending them out via email, I would also consider requesting a read receipt for those really important or sensitive meeting packs so that you know that they've received them and you've got assurance of that. Professional and timely distribution reflects a professional board culture. Managing late papers. We all know someone. Even with careful planning, late papers sometimes happen. It's good to have a clear policy on what's going to happen when there are late papers and communicate this with those people writing the papers. Is the entire pack going to be delayed? Do you hold up everything until those late papers are submitted? Or will you send out the pack and late papers are added later? You need to also communicate this to the board. If the entire pack's going to be delayed, they need to know that so that they can allocate adequate reading time. Or if it's sent out, let them know that late papers are expected so that they know to keep an eye out for those extra papers that will be coming through. Now, if you do send out late papers after the pack's gone out, you do need to notify the board immediately so that they know to look out for those. Also, let them know what changes there have been. If it's a full paper or if it's an update to a paper, what are those updates? And if necessary, recompile the entire pack and send a new version out in its entirety, also highlighting what changes have been made. Now, if you're doing that in a PDF, you'll also need to update the page numbers at this point. I'm sure some of you have seen how a single late paper can throw off an entire meeting, distracting directors from what they should really be focusing on. The worst is tabled papers, because no one's been given time to consider those. So if it's asking for something, as it's a business case, how can directors give that due process and consideration if it's coming to them on the day of the meeting? Now, governance excellence doesn't end with the meeting. It continues through record keeping. You need to save a final version of the board pack. So when I say final version, that's the one that captures any late papers or changes that have been made. It's the final version. You need to file that systematically in the organisation's official records. That becomes the story of the company. That needs to be in a PDF, preferably password protected, or securely stored in your board software system. It should be restricted to authorised people only the ones that need to see that, directors and key senior executives. Good governance requires secure, accessible records that directors and regulators can rely on. What are some common problems and solutions? Even with strong processes, some problems can still arise. Late submissions, as we just talked about, try and solve those with firm deadlines, clear communication, and if they're still coming through and they're being repeatedly done, consequences. This is something that sometimes you need to go into a name and shame process. If the same person is always consistently late with their papers and you've given them everything they require, templates, deadlines, reminders, and they're still consistently late, they might need to send out their paper to the board with an apology and a reason why that's late. If there's inconsistent formatting, providing templates can be helpful so that everyone has the same template which they should be using for their papers. This can have exactly what needs to be asked. It can have cues as to what needs to go in where, resolutions, why it's coming to the board, executive summaries, backgrounds, etc. If there are approvals missing, it can be good to create an approvals checklist for your board paper writers. So having a method for which resolutions should be written, teaching them that it should be asking the board for something objectionable, that's clear, so that the board can understand what it is approving. Broken hyperlinks. Now, the only way to find out if they're broken is to test them before distribution, like we talked about in that quality assurance process. Go back, fix them. Again, board software makes this a lot easier because the entire hyperlink process is automated and you don't need to fix anything. If there are unclear processes, again, that comes down to communication, standardizing those paper types, making sure that there's a template for if they're for noting, if they're for decision, if they're for discussion, if they're for information, what needs to be included in them, what the deadlines are, just really clear communication on those expectations. If you yourself are not sure what those expectations should be, ask the board. They'll be very happy to provide guidance on what they're looking for in their papers and they're looking for in their formats. I know every board member ever always likes more graphs, more pictures, more information. So how much time and stress could you save if those simple safeguards were built into every board cycle? Often small changes prevent big frustrations downstream. So to wrap up, well-prepared board packs aren't just an administrative exercise. They're a strategic tool that empowers directors to make better decisions faster. By applying a structured, repeatable process, from agenda setting to quality assurance to professional distribution, you're not just producing papers. You're powering leadership. You're enabling focus. You're setting the foundation for strategic governance. If you could change just one thing about your board pack process after today, what would it be? Thank you again for joining me. I hope you leave with practical ideas that you can apply straight away to make your next board meeting smoother, sharper, and more successful. And if you don't already, I highly recommend using board software to manage the board meeting process because it simplifies everything for you.
Okay, thanks, Dauniika. You mentioned how easy the whole board pack process is with board software. So my demonstration right now will focus on that sometimes problematic and traditionally manual task. From the BoardPro account dashboard, let's first create our meeting. And in this view, we can check the meeting details as shown on the screen here. And if there are any apologies from your directors or executives, we simply drag their name to the apologies column as shown here. When you're ready, select Build Agenda. The dialog box provides us with three options: to clone your previous agenda, to use our best practice template, or our new strategic agenda template from Stephen Bowman of Conscious Governance. For this demonstration, I'm going to use our best practice template. This is the draft agenda stage of the meeting as shown on the top bar. The information at this stage is available for anyone who has the access of administrator, board secretary, chair, or senior executive. Your board members do not have access to this view. Down on the left-hand side, this is where you set your agenda. You can see there are sections which are grouped together with your agenda items. You can add an agenda item like this, assign a name, and easily pick it up and drop it into the right spot. When you do so, everything behind it will automatically be renumbered in your board pack, including any attachments you may have. Clicking into the agenda item, you can add a description, a purpose, a presenter, and finally a time allocation for that particular agenda item. This helps keep the meeting on track. So back on the left-hand side now, you can see there is a little menu under these three dots which allow you to perform a variety of other functions. Let's go ahead and add a description to the first agenda point here. Next, we'll select the purpose of the agenda item, the presenter, and finally the time allocation for the agenda item. Supporting documents can be easily added to the agenda item as shown here. The documents will be included logically and page numbered in your board pack, making it easy for your directors to reference their papers. And should you wish to change the order of your documents, simply move the item up or down in the column as you can see here. So let's assume we've prepared our board pack and it's now time to publish the agenda and create the board pack. In this step, let's go ahead and email the board pack to the people we nominate here. Your board members will receive an email just like this one, advising them that the board pack is ready and prompting them to log back into BoardPro to review their board pack and make any annotations. From time to time, you'll inevitably receive late board papers, even after you've carefully compiled and distributed your board packs. Traditionally, this would mean manually inserting the new documents into your existing Word file, updating the index, checking everything for accuracy, and then resending the updated board pack via email or courier to your directors. It's a very time-consuming and stressful process, or indeed it can be. With BoardPro, this once time-consuming process is taken care of in minutes, even after the board pack has been published. To demonstrate this, we simply select Agenda on the corresponding meeting, head towards the agenda item you would like to update, add, edit or remove your files, and reorder if required, and then select Close. At this point, you have the option of republishing only for small updates, or republish and send a note to your directors advising them of the changes. Now, if your directors have made annotations on their board packs, BoardPro handles all the version controls in the background and ensures nothing is lost. So that's how easy it is to manage the whole board pack build and delivery process with BoardPro. So we're thrilled to bring you our brand new 6-part series designed to help CEOs with their most important meeting of the month. Whether you're looking to sharpen your strategic vision, craft smarter board agendas, write more effective minutes, or ensure clear follow-through on board actions, this series has you covered. Each episode dives into one of the 6 essential pillars of running a successful board meeting. No matter where you are in your governance journey, you'll find practical insights, proven tools, fresh inspiration to elevate your boardroom impact. In episode 1, Stephen dives into the powerful connection between your organization's strategic vision and the board agenda, and how getting this right sets the tone for every board conversation that follows. So get ready to shift your thinking and sharpen your focus. In episode 2, we're joined by Dauniika Maclean, CEO of Directors Dilemma and a leading expert in governance. Julie will take us into the world of board papers, not just any papers, but the kind that inform, inspire, and ignite action. If you've ever wondered how to lift the quality and impact of your board materials, this is a session not to miss. In episode 4, we'll hear from Fiona McKenzie, founder and managing director of Resolving Matters. Fiona will dive into one of the most critical success factors for every board meeting, and that is director engagement. Because let's face it, without it, the boardroom stalls, and with it, you unlock real momentum. Fiona will show you how to create meetings where every director is switched on, contributing and driving value. Episode 5 with Jen Butler presents the unsung hero of every board meeting, the humble board minutes. And in this episode, we're guided by Jen, a governance and boardroom professional who knows exactly how to turn boardroom discussion into clear, accurate, and action-ready minutes. Whether you're tired of wordy transcripts or vague summaries, Jen will show you how to strike the perfect balance, capturing what matters in a tone that's professional, precise, and purposeful. And finally, in episode 6, we'll hear from Giselle McLaughlin, who'll dive into a critical and often under-prioritized area of executive management accountability and follow-up. It's one thing to make decisions in the boardroom, but it's another to ensure those decisions are followed through with clarity, ownership, and measurable outcomes. Giselle will walk us through practical strategies to close the loop on board actions, track progress effectively, and build a culture of accountability that drives real results between meetings. If you've ever felt like board decisions vanish into a black hole after the meeting ends, then this episode is a must. So we've packed these 6 episodes with practical insights, expert know-how, and tools you can apply right away. As CEOs, you don't just attend board meetings, you lead them. And these episodes will help you do exactly that with more clarity, confidence, and impact. And that brings us to the end of this episode. A big thanks again to Dauniika Maclean for sharing her expertise and walking us through what it really takes to create board packs that are clear, organized, and fit for purpose. Board packs are the foundation of every successful board meeting, and as Dauniika has shown us when done right, they don't just inform, they empower better decision-making and create space for real strategic dialogue. I hope you're leaving today with new ideas and practical takeaways to simplify your board pack process and ultimately make your board meetings more effective and less stressful. So if you found today valuable, we'd love to have you share your reflections on LinkedIn and tag us in. It helps others in the governance community learn and grow alongside you. And if you're ready to streamline your board pack process even further, don't forget to check out BoardPro's 30-day free trial. There's no credit card required in that process. It's just a really easy way to experience the difference for yourself between the manual process and that of a board management system. So on behalf of the team here at BoardPro, thanks again for joining us. Keep leading with clarity and confidence, and we look forward to seeing you at the next episode in our How to Run a Board Meeting series.